Good. Coming up on entry. Vehicle reports entry interface. We are beginning to feel the atmosphere as we go in here. It is reporting that we are seeing G's on the order of 11 to 12 Earth G's. Commercial 2 is starting. We are now getting telemetry from Odyssey. We should have parachute deploy around Mach 1.7. Parachute is deployed. We are decelerating. Teachel has separated, we're on the ground. We're down to 90 meters per second at an altitude of 6.5 kilometers descending. Standing by for batch self-separation. We are in powered flight. We're at an altitude of 1 kilometer descending. Standing by for sky crane. Sky crane is started.
Signal Odyssey, remain strong.
Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars.
Now, I have no idea how many times I've seen that video in the last 10 years, but I think everyone remembers that heart-stopping few minutes right before the Curiosity rover landed on Mars. Probably not many of you would know that that parachute system, that amazing system you just saw, screaming towards Mars and carrying the rover, was traveling at more than twice the speed of sound. And the person who built that amazing system for an alien world is the person sitting next to me today. Her name is Dr. Anita Sengupta. And that system that she built, the one you just saw in that video, that amazing parachute system, is just one item in what has been a spellbinding career that has transcended, literally transcended worlds, dimensions, measurements, and everything we think we understand about the world. Now, a formal description of Dr. Sengupta would be that she's an aerospace scientist, she's a rocket scientist, she's an engineer, she's a pilot, she's a veteran of the space program. But I have followed Dr. Sengupta's work for a long time, and I have a name for her. I'm going to call her a dimensional ninja, because that's what she is, and you'll agree with me by the end of this talk, because everything that she's done, everything that she's dipped her fingers into has pushed up against dimensions. The systems that she's built, the science that she's conducted, the machines that she has researched and developed currently power spacecraft that are in the asteroid belt. She led a team of scientists that have created the coldest spot in the known universe on board the International Space Station. And when Dr. Anita Sengupta isn't turning the physical world on its head, she is someone who also spends her time, and I need to refer to my notes because this is a long list. She's a pilot, she's a sports motorcyclist, she's an advanced open water scuba diver, she's a mountain biker, she's a high-speed sports motorcyclist, she's a snowboarder, she's a mountaineer, and a runner. So clearly she hasn't been doing very much with her life. I want to start, Dr. Sengupta, by first of all saying what a privilege it is to have you here at the India Today Conclave. You've been an inspiration to thousands of people here in India, I can tell you, and I'm sure you've seen that on your travels. But I want to start with that video we just showed our viewers. Those amazing few minutes, I remember it. I was in the India Today newsroom, watching that video when it happened. Was that the highlight of your career? Seeing something that you developed, something that could have gone completely wrong, in an alien world, twice the speed of sound, landing successfully. What was that like?
It was probably the most frightening aspect of my career, just because when it's actually landed, it happened 14 minutes ago due to the distance between Earth and Mars. So it was probably the most scary thing, but it was also the most exciting thing.
It's been described as 7 minutes of terror. And we've seen some of those images inside the control room. We saw the absolute ecstasy on the faces of the scientists and the telemetry engineers and those who were observing. Where were you when that was happening?
So that is the primary control room that they show on TV, but there's actually an entry, descent, and landing control room, which is in a different building, where we're bringing in all the telemetry and analyzing to see whether or not every aspect of the mission is happening. Because one of the reasons why you do these missions is you learn from them. So in the event things don't go quite right, you want to know when it didn't work out so you can learn from that and build that into the next system that you design. So there's an engineering control room, which isn't shown on TV, and then there's the primary one that you see on TV.
Dr. Sengupta was 6 years old when she was watching Star Trek and Doctor Who on television. And I read somewhere that there was one magic moment when you were 6 years old. And everything that you've ever done since then followed from that one moment. Tell us about that. Was it really you watching Star Trek, being inspired by it, and deciding, that's all I want to do now?
Well, so my father was a PhD mechanical engineer. He actually went to IIT Bombay, and so I used to watch reruns of Star Trek with my dad. So I always was fascinated by space exploration and the potential for alien worlds. So I really did always know that I wanted to do that. It was more a question, do I become an engineer like my dad, or do I become an astrophysicist? And I went the engineering route.
Dr. Sengupta actually had the honor, and William Shatner also had the honor of meeting Dr. Sengupta. We've got some images that we're going to put on that screen for you, where you actually got to meet him. Captain Kirk from Star Trek himself. There's that picture where she's meeting, the guy who played Captain Kirk for his show, I Don't Understand, where she was talking about, many of these things. And he actually asked you a really, really great question that I think most of us would want to know. Why do we want to go to Mars? Why is there such a big effort to want to go to Mars?
So I think it's in the nature of humanity to explore, and in the past people would explore by going to different continents, exploring under the ocean, and now the next phase of exploration is exploring space. And it's also natural for us to want to expand as a species, and so one of the easiest places for us to get to and actually set up a colony is on the surface of Mars, just because that's only one planet out from us. So I think it's just in the nature of humanity to explore and push the envelope.
You spent 16 years at NASA. Leading some of the most cutting-edge research projects. The systems you've built, aren't just on paper or in the realms of research on a lab. They're out there, literally in our solar system, being proven. The asteroid belt, on Mars, and elsewhere. In your 16 years and beyond, Dr. Sengupta, have you ever come close? Have there been moments in your work, in your research, when you've come close to getting a sense that there's going to be a breakthrough to that eternal question, are we alone in the universe?
So I actually absolutely believe that we're not alone in the universe, and it's actually probabilistically unlikely that we would be the only organism. And I think when I was working on the development of a cryo-explorer for Europa, which is one of the moons of Jupiter, it actually has a liquid water ocean. So I honestly think that when we're able to send something to melt through the ice on Europa, we will find some type of life form. It probably won't be an intelligent life form like us, but it will be an organism. And that really will change our perspective, because it's not just about Earth where life exists. It could be many, many places in our solar system, as well as beyond our solar system in our galaxy and in other galaxies.
So you're saying that life definitely exists outside the solar system, but you're saying that you believe that Europa, which is a moon of Jupiter, right here in our solar system, when that probe actually goes there, digs down into that moon, and reaches that liquid ocean, you strongly believe there will be life. So there will be alien life, as it were, in our solar system.
I think it's quite likely. And for example, one of the moons of Saturn, Enceladus, there's plumes that erupt from the surface of the moon, and we already know that there's organic material in those plumes because of the Cassini spacecraft. So just from a probabilistic perspective, it is very likely that we'll find organic aggregates and potentially, let's say, some sort of single-celled organism in those oceans.
While all of us are processing some of these things we're talking about, stuff that's happening in Mars, the asteroid belt, systems moving at blinding speed that are beyond our immediate conception, there are many, I'm sure, Dr. Sengupta, who've asked you through your travels and your talks about why are we looking so much into space? Why spend all this money on space travel and, millions, if not billions of dollars on a space program when we've got so many problems to solve here on Earth? How do you, I know a bit of the answer, but how do you address that question?
So it is a really important discussion, and it's an important debate to have, but when you develop new technology, when you do fundamental research, you never know what it's going to lead to in the future, but you still do it. And some examples of that would be the laser. People said 50 years ago, what is a laser going to be used for? It's used for everything, from medical devices to laser pointers to manufacturing. And when you look at the space program, the number of technologies that have been created that have made our world a better place when it comes to energy technologies like fuel cells, like solar arrays, when it comes to energy storage technologies like batteries, it actually improves the quality of our life here on Earth, and it translates to economic development, economic gain, which ultimately creates a better society for us. And I think the other really important one is that it actually motivates young people to become scientists and engineers. So I never would have been a scientist and engineer without the space program. And so with that motivation comes a tremendous return on investment from the space program.
We've got some nice imagery from Dr. Sengupta's work, which we'll keep flipping on that screen behind us. But the reason why I believe Dr. Sengupta when she answers that question, which I'm sure most space scientists are asked, is because she's a person who has actually literally put her money where her mouth is, taken many of the learnings and technologies, her education, her career, her achievements in space research, and applied them to real problems here on Earth. Isn't that true, Dr. Sengupta? The things that you're doing right now are about solving problems here on Earth.
Yeah, so in 2017, I decided to leave NASA and join a startup developing green transportation, because I truly believe that my engineering skills from the space program, the technologies that we've developed in the space program, the mindset associated with making the impossible possible has a real translation to making our quality of life here on Earth by mitigating climate change.
One of my passions, apart from everything else I do, is aviation. And reading about Dr. Sengupta's newest venture, it's only a few years old, it's called Hydroplane. And we've got a picture of an aircraft that I'm going to put up on that screen for you in just a moment. There it is. Dr. Sengupta now heads a company called Hydroplane, which is researching a kind of hydrogen fuel cell, a power system for light aircraft, helicopters, that is completely emission-free, completely noise-free. Imagine an aircraft that is emission-free, no emissions, no carbon footprint, no noise, completely safe, and a huge number of other benefits. Because, Dr. Sengupta, every year, there's this one thing that goes viral on the internet. We all see a picture of this huge bunch of luxury business jets parked on this lovely idyllic airport in Switzerland, and these are business jets belonging to some of the biggest business leaders and world leaders, all trooping to Davos for the World Economic Forum. They get off these lovely business jets that have emitted all these things into the atmosphere, and then they lecture the entire world about emissions, and they lecture the entire world about green energy and clean energy and commitments and things like that. You're literally doing that. The technology that you're building now could actually make aircraft like those clean and emission-free. How far along are you?
So yes, and this comes back to a prior question, which is hydrogen fuel cell technology was originally developed for the space program. It was developed for the Apollo mission. It was developed for the space shuttle. It's a really efficient form of energy storage. So the company is 3 years old. I founded it 3 years ago, and we're going to have our first flight this year. And this technology not only supports small aircraft and helicopters, it also supports vehicles which currently are operating on diesel, like trucks, transit buses, and rail. So it has the ability to decarbonize multiple forms of ground transport with electrification, with green hydrogen.
Because this is something that I would say India desperately needs. The ability to plug green, clean, emission-free energy into as many places as possible. Transportation, aviation, sources of energy for the country as well. Is that something you're looking at specifically? How India can plug into this entire project?
Definitely. So I think India is on the verge of an energy revolution and energy evolution. And I think instead of going the battery route, I think the government and the people here want to go the green hydrogen route. So if India can become a producer of green hydrogen, if India can become a manufacturer or developer of hydrogen fuel cell technology, not only can it decarbonize India's own carbon footprint and transportation network, it can also sell it to the larger Asian community and the larger global community. So now is the time for this technology, and it has the ability to take off.
Paint us a specific picture, Dr. Sengupta, of how India would be able to benefit from fuel cell technology and green energy technology in specific areas that are achievable in the near term. Because for too long, green energy has seemed like a faraway castle to most of us. But the research you're doing in this technology means that the aircraft that she has, the system that she's built, and we have a picture of that aircraft, is going to fly this year, which means it's real. You can touch it. You're going to see it fly this year itself. There's the aircraft.
That's our aircraft. So I actually flew this aircraft myself from Texas to Los Angeles, where we're based. Then we ripped out the internal combustion engine from it, which is piston driven, and we're now building it up with a hydrogen fuel cell power plant that we've developed ourselves. But it doesn't just have to be aircraft. We can also put it into a very polluting diesel truck, as well as a transit bus, which is currently carrying a diesel system. So it allows you to be much more efficient in terms of how much fuel you have to use, and you only put out liquid water in terms of what's coming out of the fuel cell.
Just imagine that it's already going to fly. That's how near it is. That's how achievable it is. It's not a research project. It's actually going to fly. And are you going to be the one flying it when it makes that first flight with the hydrogen fuel cell?
I probably won't do the first flight because my investors wouldn't like that, but I probably will do the second or the third flight. But I am a commercial pilot, so I am able to fly it and fly people for hire. So maybe that'll be part of an operational business in future.
And once this technology gets proven, we're talking about small aircraft, small helicopters, possibly big drones as well. I can see a lot of military applications for this kind of thing. Could this be scaled? And I'm asking because not many of us understand how this technology works. But could this at some point be scaled towards civil aviation, passenger flights, the flights people like us take?
Absolutely. So we're only starting small because when you look at the certification of new technology, it's able to get the product on the market sooner if you start with a smaller system. So this is a 200 kilowatt, 270 horsepower system, right? But it's modular, so you can go up to 500 kilowatts, up to a megawatt. So you can support twin turboprop aircraft soon, just not tomorrow, because it takes a few years to get certified. But from an MVP perspective, you want to get a fast go-to-market strategy, hence the initial smaller application. But the other application is marine. So marine is another big polluter. Perfect solution for hydrogen fuel cell technology.
So civil aviation, and I want to talk about that because that is something that affects our lives. How would it change things? Just take, for example, any flight, a Boeing or an Airbus aircraft fitted with this kind of technology instead of the aviation jet fuel technology or the engine that it currently uses. What would be the difference? What would be the benefits? Would there be cost savings? Would tickets become cheaper? Would it be safer? Tell us about that.
So the first implementation for civil aviation wouldn't be on a jet plane just because those fly at high altitudes, and a hydrogen fuel cell is an air breathing system, so you don't get as much oxygen at higher altitudes and you have to put in an electric air compressor. So the first implementation would be smaller aircraft, let's say 10 to 50 seat aircraft that are flying at 10 to 25,000 feet, which is very implementable. And even though your experience is currently, I sit on a plane with hundreds of other people. When I fly an airplane, I sit on an airplane with very few people or not as many people. So you can have an alternative regional aircraft market, which is flying smaller planes to airports which are even closer to where you live. So there isn't a requirement to have to go into Delhi International Airport, which can be left for the big jets for the international flights. And instead, you can use smaller airports with these smaller aircraft to get you closer to where you want to go. It also couples to the urban air mobility, electric vertical takeoff and landing architecture that you've probably also heard about. So it's a different way of thinking of aviation, but the fuel cost will be less because it's an efficient system. Your carbon footprint will be zero because it puts out water. And ultimately, as the consumer, the cost of using the system will be equivalent or less to what you're currently paying.
So huge benefits without any real change. Okay. Dr. Sengupta, you weren't born in India, but you do travel to India quite a bit. With this new venture as well, you have been looking at India for possible collaborations, possible benefits, and the ways you can use startup companies here in India. Tell us about that. How do you view the startup ecosystem in India right now? How do you think that could benefit some of the cutting edge things you're doing?
So I think we definitely would like to start a subsidiary here, and we'd like to work with other companies on the vehicle space to give them our technology to go into their vehicles and to manufacture our technology here in India. So I think now is the time because there's a lot of investment in this area, specifically in India. So we think we can set up very meaningful partnerships with both the large corporate entities as well as the startup ecosystem here in India.
Another project that Dr. Sengupta was... Oh, is time up? Okay. Last question. In India, Dr. Sengupta, parents are often stereotyped as those who want their children to be either engineers or doctors. That's changed quite a bit. But I heard you once say that there is no better course you can do than get an engineering degree, because that teaches you how to solve real-world problems and it sets you up for everything and anything else you'd want to do in life. Is that something you still tell young people? And you've met a lot of young people here in India.
Yes, it's something that my dad told me when I was a little girl, and it actually stuck. So I think engineering degree is the best degree that you can get because it teaches you how to think, it teaches you how to solve problems, and from that, you can do anything.
Dr. Anita Sengupta, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sengupta. For all those little kids that you were talking about, I would reckon.
আজতক বাংলা, দেশের ভরসা, এখন বাংলার ভরসা।